everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Dayton Drama Queens. I'm Josh Stucky.
I'm Philip Drennen.
Before we get started, thank you to Square One Salon and Spa, our major sponsor, Tyler and Mitosis, for everything they're doing to keep us up and going. And thank you to our fans.
Yes, thank you for continuing to share and watch and subscribing. It's been really, really great, and we have tons more planned for you.
Yes, we do. We do. And we're just getting more and more information out there to everybody. And people are like, I didn't know this existed, and so on and so forth. So
And
it's
guess what?
working.
We didn't either.
We didn't either. So that's what's really great. Today we have Isaac with us from the Dayton Ballet, which we're very excited.
Yes,
thank you for joining
hi,
us.
Isaac.
Thank you for having me.
Of course, of course. So tell us a little bit about yourself. Are you from Dayton?
I am not. I am
So How did
originally.
you end up here?
Yeah, I'm originally from Ann Arbor, Michigan. So please don't hold that against me.
I was going
No,
to say, I
that's
think
great
we're
to know.
supposed to be
I know there's
rivals or
beef.
something.
I don't really know. My dad actually got both his master's degrees from University of Michigan, but both my siblings went to Ohio State. So I feel like we've
you
reached
spread it out.
some, happy
Okay.
medium. But then I left home at 17 to join the Sarasota Ballet in Florida. I was
Oh, wow.
a trainee there for a year.
Okay.
And then at 18, I went to Eugene Ballet in Oregon, and I was there for 4 years, and we toured the States. So that was really cool.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, and then I was offered a contract with the Dayton Ballet in 2017.
Oh, that's 8 years. I didn't realize
yeah,
it's
it's
been
been a
that
minute.
long. That's
yeah.
amazing.
Yeah, and been here ever since.
Yeah,
That's
and you've
great.
seen a lot of change
Yes.
with the Dayton Ballet.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about the beginnings to where you are now. How's it changed? How are you feeling about it?
Yeah, it's been wonderful. I mean, it was really cool when I first got the contract because I knew of Dayton Ballet.
Yeah.
But I didn't know how rich the history of Dayton Ballet was. I mean, it's been around for almost 100 years. It's either the second or third oldest ballet company in the U.S.
I think it's third. I think I just
Okay.
read this the other day. It's
Okay.
the third longest. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
Isn't that weird?
which is
Yeah,
pretty
it's amazing.
incredible. Like
Yeah.
Dayton, Ohio.
Dayton, Ohio, yeah.
And I think Dayton, and Ohio in general, is such a beautiful art scene. So joining it was really cool to because I joined, I believe I was 22.
Okay.
And I just turned 30. So I've definitely gone through a lot of life change
Sure.
Sure.
through all those 8 years. I think I was very lucky because a lot of tenured dancers had left when I entered my second season.
Okay.
So that I kind of got pushed forward very quickly
Okay.
here, which was a challenge at 22
Baptism
years
by
old.
fire, yes.
But it provided a lot of opportunity. I like to say that Dayton Ballet is a small pond, but a very good pond
Okay.
in terms of the repertoire we get to do and the things we get to dance. And then obviously we've gone through a director change, which has been, which for a lot of companies can be quite challenging, but I think we're fortunately very lucky in that we have Brandon Raglan, who's come in and been very gracious and wonderful to all the tenured dancers. And yeah, it's been a really cool ride.
Interestingly, I have to share with you that one thing I've heard, through the grapevine, the last performance, everyone has said you could feel the change in the Dayton Ballet, that it was like on a different trajectory. It just felt modern and hip and something, out of the ordinary. Tell us how you're feeling about what's going on with the change there.
I'm feeling really good. I think our rep show is really, I wish more people knew what our repertoire shows were because I think they don't have the name recognition as like Sleeping Beauty or Cinderella. But I think anytime we have audiences come, they're like, oh my gosh, this is what I want to be seeing.
Yeah.
Right.
So I think it was a really eclectic program for sure. Starting with a Balanchine, which we're building more of a relationship with doing Balanchine work, which has been really cool.
Yeah.
And then a lot of more contemporary work. We did one piece by the choreographer Sanjay Pai that was, about a queer love story.
Well, now that's pretty big.
Yeah.
Really, especially
Yeah.
for Dayton, Ohio.
Yeah,
And,
yeah. I mean, it's been interesting just in terms of like that avenue of work because the first time I ever danced anything that dealt with a relationship within the LGBT community was actually something I choreographed for Dayton Ballet's New Year's Eve spectacular, and I didn't tell anyone I was doing it because I was like, I'm gonna,
Surprise
just
them.
go for it, which was more of a romantic love story. But then our former director Karen Russell-Burke had done Streetcar Named Desire, and it was a very old Tennessee Williams play. And it's like lightly referenced that there is a gay romance between two men, but it's like it was Tennessee Williams, the time period. It was very on the, but Karen really wanted to highlight that because she thought it was really important to the story.
Okay.
But that ends quite tragically. So then jumping now to Sanjay's, I think there are moments of romance in it, there are moments of heartbreak. And so I think what I appreciated about this particular work was that it was just like real people experiencing it didn't have to be this whole drama on top of everything else. We could just like be people living in the existence that we were. And then getting to dance a piece by Q Blair, who is with DCDC. Just reestablishing that relationship between the ballet and the DCDC has been really wonderful, and we're doing a funk show with them next season. So, I feel like there's a big sense of community happening within Dayton Ballet right now, which is lovely.
That is lovely.
Yeah. When it comes to doing more contemporary pieces versus these classical pieces we're used to, what kind of changes in the process? Does the the technique obviously stays the same? I assume when you're dancing ballet, it's like that's technique.
Yeah.
Is it the storytelling change, the music change, do the moves change? Like, what is the shift like?
That's a great question. So I would definitely say I'm definitely more of a contemporary ballet dancer. That's always been my strong suit. I was not one that had perfect turnout or perfect feet, so I kind of found my avenue a little bit more in the contemporary. No, yes, I'm essentially yes. But if anyone gets that reference too, that's amazing.
I know.
It's a great film.
I'll tell you later.
But I definitely think there's more room for interpretation in contemporary work because it's a little bit more like what works for your body in terms of the movement given. I also like to say with contemporary ballet, it's almost like watching light on water. Like, you're having a feeling about it, but you don't necessarily need to define what that feeling is or why you're feeling that way.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
And so I think, because like a lot of times the choreographer will have an idea of what a piece is about or what it means to them, but there's a lot more room for interpretation versus doing something like Sleeping Beauty where it's kind of a little more cut and dry.
Right.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
That's amazing. So I think one thing that really intrigues people is what it takes to keep your body, because my college roommate was a ballet dancer.
Right.
Yeah, Timiano, who was with Dayton Ballet, kind of what they, back in the days of Stuart Sebastian, which people still talk about. But tell me a little bit about that. What do you do to keep yourself in this shape, in this form, so to speak?
And honestly, for me, I think it's different for every dancer because every body is different.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of it is listening to what your specific body needs because, if something goes wrong, you're the first to hear about it.
Yeah.
And I think there's often a
way to put that out.
Thank you. And because, there's we have a lot of wonderful support here, specifically at Dayton Ballet. But in general, there's, particularly with social media, there's a lot that you can read about what you should or shouldn't be doing.
Yes.
So my thing is always like, well, what works best for you? So my thing, it often depends on the show.
Okay.
So for example, like if I'm doing a performance that's very heavy in terms of like partnering and lifting, I probably won't lift as much when I go to the gym because I don't want to continue to wear out those same muscles. Right. So I might focus on something else like stamina or something.
Yeah.
Whereas if I'm doing a show that's more heavy in terms of the dancing and stamina, I might spend more time at the gym lifting just to keep those muscles working correctly.
Right.
Rest is super important. Definitely rest, whether that means an ice bucket, whether that means like eating a donut and watching Netflix.
That sounds good.
Yeah, right?
I probably get that one.
Yeah.
Swimming is really great for dancers. So there's definitely different cross training. And I think luckily we're entering a period of time with exercise science where there's more focus on professional ballet than there used to be.
Yeah.
Because it is, just as challenging, if not more so than most sports. So I think exercise science is starting to catch up into what we need as dancers physically.
Yeah, that makes sense.
That's I have a husband who loves Pilates, who always talks about, and this is what a lot of ballet dancers do. That stuff is so difficult.
Yes.
It's pulling parts of me I didn't know existed.
And it's all so much. Ballet is so much about the core.
Yes.
Everything is kind of centered.
Yeah, it's a weird balance of being held while being not held.
Yeah.
Or like looking like you're not being held. It's tricky for sure.
Yeah.
How many people are in the ballet company?
Ooh, I believe we have around we have 20 dancers within the company itself.
Okay.
And then we have, I believe, 7 studio company dancers who are dancers who are kind of like on the cusp of becoming professional. They do most all the work with us, or at least get to learn it and get to step in. And
Is there behind the scenes drama, or is it?
no, I would actually, it's funny you say that, because I was having this conversation recently that I think Dayton Ballet is probably one of the least dramatic ballet companies I've ever worked with.
That's
great to
Which,
hear.
you know, there are always things.
Oh, sure.
You know, I would say I think we're also approaching a period in time where dancers are more willing to have autonomy. And because I think we have lived in a environment culturally with ballet where it was a little bit more of like a dance monkey dance,
Yeah.
and, you know, be grateful.
Yeah.
Which, not to say that we're not grateful as dancers, but I think we're willing more so to speak up for what we need as human beings. So not so much drama, I would say, but more so I think there's an awakening, which is a very dramatic word to use.
No, I mean, this is like the most philosophical,
I love it.
like prophetic interview I've ever done in my life. But keep going. That's great.
Of dancers saying, well, no, we're people too, that, you know, we have rent, we have health insurance, there's a, you know, we have lives outside of this.
That's awesome.
So
Which
I think
is
it's
so
more
crazy that that we, whoever has had to sort of fight for, because at the end of the day, I mean, we are going to see you all. I mean,
Yeah.
you're the face of it.
Right.
So, you know,
Yeah.
it makes sense that you should at least be taken care of.
You would think. I would say it's interesting. I was talking to my boyfriend about this the other day, but I think even within the arts world, because I think like in a lot of art forms, you have the painter and then you have the painting. And you can separate that the painter is different from the painting, even though you know they are connected to it. Whereas like in dance, we are both the painter and the painting.
You stop
I
with
know, I'm
this.
loving
Isaac,
I'm glad this
too
is
much.
recorded. I'm going to go back.
So I think sometimes what gets lost is that we get looked at like we're the painting, and it gets forgotten that we are also the painter that has to like go home and have a life and have a family and like all
Right.
these things. So I think sometimes that can turn into a lot of objectivity.
Sure.
So I think it's been really nice that we're entering a period, which is probably due to Gen Z, that there's a lot more voice coming from dancers.
Amazing.
So-
Well, I
As
mean,
it should be.
small scale, well, large scale. I mean, even just your body alone. Like you said, you got to listen to your body.
Yeah.
You know, I think there was probably majority of time in this career you just had to push through and push through.
Yeah, actually, my first season in Eugene, I broke my foot on stage.
Oh, God.
And I finished the ballet because of adrenaline. Like, I didn't know it was broken, and I refused to admit it was
Right.
broken for about a week. So I also think because this career is so short, like, we want to get every opportunity we can. So, like, sometimes that comes to, like, pushing ourselves past what our limits might be.
Yeah, and you're like almost scared. You don't want people to know you're hurt.
Yeah,
It's like, you know.
or we like don't want to be taken out of a
Right.
role, or things like that. So
Wow.
Now, do you do other art forms besides ballet? Do you sing? Do you? No.
I am a terrible singer. Actually,
You can't
once,
have everything.
Exactly. I actually once auditioned. I had a summer break, and I had a friend who was doing Newsies in California, and he asked me. They were like, "Oh, they need another dancer, so like send them your dance reel." So I did, and they were like, "Oh, well, like, could you send us a video of you singing?" And needless to say, I did not get the part, so I cannot sing. So no, I'm because I consider so many different things art, but my boyfriend really likes to knit and quilt.
that's cool.
So now I've also just finished my bachelor's degree. So now that I have some more spare time, he might teach me how to do that. So that may be my next artistic endeavor.
Yeah.
But we'll see.
Artists
Yeah.
are artists.
I would
Yes.
start with,
do.
I think
Exactly.
crocheting is a little easier, right?
Okay.
I think. I learned one, and I think crocheting's a little
Yeah.
easier.
He's admittedly explained it a few times, and
That's what I mean.
We'll
It's like
figure it out.
tricky.
Yeah.
So you just got your bachelor's degree, you
I
said?
did,
What did
yes.
you what is that in?
I did a bachelor's of science in communications.
Oh, great.
So when I left home at 17, I had already earned my associate's degree, which is how I convinced my parents at the time. They were incredibly supportive.
I was going to ask you about
They
that.
were
how your
wonderful.
family felt about you getting
Yeah,
into
they
dancing.
were so supportive. they actually recently they passed in 2023. So
I'm so sorry.
no,
Sorry
you're
about
okay. But they were they actually put me in dance because I hated Little League, but they wanted me to be active.
That is relatable.
Yeah. And like I have memories of my dad, walking me down the aisle of the pink Barbie aisle at Toys R Us, like picking. So they were always very supportive of me. And I grew up in a very small Midwest town, so I wasn't aware of how much of an anomaly that was until I became an adult.
For sure.
But they were number one fans. They were at every show. Yeah, so they were absolutely wonderful.
Do you have
people.
siblings?
So, yes, I have an older sister and an older brother, who are also so incredible. My sister used to dance, and she actually, even to this day, is like a huge inspiration because she was such a thoughtful dancer and very artistic and very detailed. And like, so I try and still like pull from watching her, even like now, all these years later.
That's so cool.
But so she's a prosecutor, and then my brother's a doctor. So we're just running the gambit, of professions. Yeah.
So is there like a show that you would love to be in, or one you've been in just this in your mind forever?
Well, if Brandon's watching,
I'm sure he is.
My dream role is to play Mr. Hyde in Jekyll and Hyde.
Oh, fun.
I love playing dark characters, so that would be a dream.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say too much about like classical ballets because I don't want to necessarily put that in the universe in terms of what my dream roles are. But two ballets I would really like to do are Paul Taylor's Company B, which is like World War II, the Andrews Sisters. Is a great piece, and I think with the Air Force
I've never heard of that before.
It's such a
Fantastic.
it's one of my favorite pieces, and I also think with the Air Force community here, I think it's something that Dayton would really like.
They'd eat that with a spoon.
Yes, I agree. And then I would really love to do. There's a ballet by Anthony Tudor called The Lilac Garden. I saw it when I was a trainee at Sarasota Ballet. They did it, and it is my favorite ballet. It's just like dramatic. It's about this woman who's getting engaged, or her wedding reception is at a lilac garden, but she's in love with another man.
Oh gosh.
And then there's like all this drama that ensues, and it's just such a beautiful ballet. So I'd really like to do that at some point.
That's awesome. I'm sure Brandon will hook you up.
Yeah. So hopefully one of these days I'll get to do them.
Yeah.
That's funny.
So, when you're young and you're dancing and things like that, was there a point where you thought to yourself, I want to do this as a career?
Yeah. So I think when I started dancing, I was at what we lovingly call Dolly Dinkle studios, which are kind of like those recreational studios that don't really know what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
So I started there, and then I went to a ballet school in Ohio because I kind of lived, I say Ann Arbor, but I lived kind of on the border of Michigan, Ohio. So it was kind of, driving wise, it was doable.
Yeah.
And I was there for a couple of years, and then I think I was about 14 when I was like, no, I'm going to do this for real. And my mom found a studio in Michigan that was with a Russian teacher. He had studied at the Vaganova in Russia.
Wow.
And it was like an hour and 15 minutes from my house. The charter school I went to was about 45 minutes. And my mom didn't really want me driving on the expressway at that age. So every day she would drive me 45 minutes to school. She'd come home. She'd go pick me up. She'd drive me all the way up to ballet. I was up there for a few hours, and then she would drive me the hour and a half home. I would study in the car.
Wow.
So it was a wild time, but again, going back to parental support. Yeah.
I mean, if you're young and you can do that, then you probably have what it takes to, because you have to be that disciplined if you're going to go into a field like this.
So it was a wild time, but you know, do it while you're young, I suppose.
No, it's true. It's true.
I definitely couldn't do that. I live 10 minutes away, and I'm like, I gotta go where?
I know, it's kind of true.
The older I get,
I can't do this.
Yeah.
So let's take it to where it all starts. What advice would you give to anybody who's looking to get into the dance thing? Because people don't realize the commitment.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of commitment.
Yeah.
The one thing I would like to say is that one, turnout isn't everything. It is something, and I would say I like to say, this is just my technical advice for dancers, is to try and think of turnout as a verb and not a noun, because I think there's so much forcing of aesthetics in ballet.
Yeah.
Versus using what you have and your muscularity to make what you can do happen.
Right.
But in terms of the grit of it all, we've heard this a million times, but you're going to be told no. you know,
We
you're going to be
just
told no all the time.
Yeah.
Even once you get into a ballet company, you're not going to get every role that
Right,
you want. You know,
exactly.
all these things are going to happen. So my advice to young dancers, especially, because oftentimes young dancers have been at their ballet school, have probably done very well at their ballet school. You know, they're dancing Sugar Plum in their high school productions of the Nutcracker and all these things. But they're going to have to understand that they're going to have to work their way up.
Yeah.
Because I often find some of the most successful dancers, particularly within regional ballet, were not the stars of their studio. They were the dancers who were maybe, you know, snowflake core number 4 and had to work their way up because they know that, like, they have to leave their ego at the door a little bit. Yeah. My other piece of advice is to speak up for yourself and to be appreciative of the people who are willing to be voices for you. Which is why I have this platform. I would love to say a special thank you to Susan Kettering, who is such an advocate for the dancers of Dayton Ballet, and it's absolutely wonderful. So when you have people like that in your life who are willing to fight for you and help you, be appreciative and acknowledge them. And yeah, I think find the fun, which is not easy because once it becomes your job,
That's right.
you treat it like a job, and it can get challenging in that way.
Find the fun. Great way to end
so
this
try
thing.
and find the fun.
Yes. Thank you so much.
Thank you guys.
you.
This was amazing.
Yeah.
I learned a lot. And I just
Flew
feel like
by.
you've given me like life lessons that I
That's
tried
great.
to forget about.
Yes.
And I want to remind everybody, when you talked about, you know, that disappointment piece, we were talking about this with our last guest.
Okay.
I was Oliver in my very first show at the age of 8. And the next show I didn't get a part. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen.
Here you are.
And here we are.
Anyway, thank you everybody for following us on Dayton Drama Queens. Isaac, you've been amazing.
Thank you.
Yes,
I
thank
love
you.
Thank you so much. I'm Josh Stucky.
I'm Philip Drennen.
We'll see you next time.
See ya.